another analysis of the script that I wrote. And I would make sure, for instance, each scene, when the protagonist goes in and when he comes out, he has to have a different goal. If he still keeps the same goal, it means he has not changed. It means nothing happened in that scene. It means that scene should be cut. So you have to go through that process. You also look at it and say, what is the visual appeal? What is the mood in the scene? You try to be inventive. So it's an invention process. It's also a process for you to write down, to draw the storyboard, so that you have, when I finished my analysis, my storyboard was this tall. You know, I had six big booklets, and those are all my shots. And what it does is that by the time that you reach the location, you know what you're doing. You don't really keep those storyboard in your mind anymore, but you have it in the back of your mind. So to give you one example, I know you won't be able to see it, but eventually when you see the movie, please pay attention to one scene. And that is a scene that I had a lot of different colors of umbrellas. You know, it's a scene that it's a bank rush. People went to the bank wanting to have their cash out. And I look at the scene, there was no protagonists. You know, it's a scene, group scene of all these actors that are hired at very low wage. You know, they are really not good-looking people, and they're not, you know, it's not an interesting scene, but I have to tell the story. I have to say there is a bank rush. So I look at it and said, it needs to be cut, but I can't cut it. What do I do? So I decided to ask for umbrellas. I asked for different colors of umbrellas, and I made sure that the umbrellas are period umbrellas. And this was before 3 months before I started shooting. So I told the prop department I need 50 umbrellas. And they made the preparation. And we went to the location, high in the mountains, and we had the umbrellas. If I did not do that analysis, and I went to the site, and I look at the scene, and I said, ooh, this is really ugly, what am I going to do? And I start to ask for umbrellas 2 days ahead of the shoot, which some director did, okay? My name was stink in Beijing the next day. People will call back to Beijing and say, she does not prepare. This woman, she does not prepare. So you will just have a bad name from that day on. You can never erase it, okay? So this, people ask me, how do you keep your authority? This is the way you keep your authority. You make sure your people, the people under you, do not have to get into a panic stage. They do not have to question you. They do not have to mumble against you. Okay, so that was what I did. And so when people see that scene, people simply get spectacles. You remember the word spectacles? No, people get somehow swindled by the spectacles, and they forgot that it's such a boring scene. Okay. So then you start recruitment of the chief collaborators. The movie is about these bankers who actually have ethical core. So when people saw this movie, this was right after the Enron fiasco. So people saw that people read the script. Somehow it resonated with them. So they jumped on board very easily. I had the best collaborators. The two art designers the two chief art designers, the tastemakers in Hong Kong, both of them got on board for this movie. They never collaborated before. They never collaborated after. For this movie, they collaborated because they felt it was a worthwhile movie for the time. So it was really easy to recruit good people. And for me, it was another policy that I had. This came from my theatrical experience. That is, when you recruit the best people, you don't try to be their boss. You try to be their collaborator. You try to be a coordinator. I think a good director is a good coordinator. You make sure the environment is good for them to work. You make sure they feel happy in the environment. They feel that it's a free environment for them to express themselves. And therefore, you get best work out of them. A lot of times I had to compromise. I had to say, all right, fine, I hear you, fine. But do you mind, can we do also that shot? You know, so that in that way, I got pretty much everything I wanted, but I made sure that they got pretty much what they wanted too. And I think that is a good way to lead when you have a large group of 250 people. So, all right. And then, so cinematographer, production designer, meaning the person who's in charge of the arts design. Line producer is actually quite often the most overlooked person in a film production crew. But he is probably the most important because he's in charge of the budget. He's in charge of all the personnel. And if people want to rebel against you, he is probably the best person to put them down or fire them. Or if he joins the other group, you better fire yourself right away. So a lot of people actually, when this movie was shown to some Hollywood people, like Sid Gaines, who some of you might know because he stays here quite a few times too, and he was the Oscar chair, the last Oscar chair. So he went to China, and China showed him the film, and he wanted to see me. So the first question he asked me was, what was the budget? And I said, it was $10 million US. And he said, wow. And he said, I thought it was 24 million. And I never asked him, to this day I have not asked him why it was 24 rather than 25. why was it that precise, 24? But we really know when you have a good line producer, when the line producer is with you, he will try his best to squeeze every penny to its best use. In terms of my line producer, not only he was the person who approved me to do real location shoot, meaning, okay, sort of sidetrack, but it's important. When remember I said that I wanted to cover the landscape of this, or the map of these merchants. So I showed the script to the line producers when I went to China. You know, all these are big-time line producers. And they said to me, forget about relocation shoot. This is an undoable script. You know, you cannot do this unless you go to a studio. And I said, well, if I go to a studio, I get a TV drama. He said, well, that's what you're going to get because you're not supposed to write a script that hops from one place to the next. Until I ran into Mr. Lee. And he was trained by the August 1st studio. And you probably do not know the name, but this is the Army studio. They did a lot of propagandistic movies, the big explosive movies, trumping the big deeds of the important deeds of the Communist Party. So they did. It's a studio that had a lot of money because it's an Army studio, and it also was very daring in terms of production values. So Mr. Lee was a colonel from that studio, and I asked him if he was willing, and he said, well, it's difficult, but it's doable. So he joined me, and when he started to map out, we actually transferred the other line producers said to me, you can only transfer 3 times, because you're talking about 200 trucks moving as a caravan through treacherous road, trying to reach a destiny that is quite often at the end of the most treacherous road. So it actually has to do with people's lives. So when all the others said you cannot do it, he allowed me 9 times of transfer. So we shot the movie in 4 provinces: Gansu, Qinghai, Shanxi, and Hebei. And if you know the geography of China, those are like to the west of to the west, and the most east to the east. So the odometer on my trailer read 5 times the distance between the east coast and the west coast of this country. So we literally shot a movie on the run. And then the movie was shot on 46 sets in 13 provinces. That is why the movie looks grand, because we really went through all those locations and shot them in real locations. And that was the line producer. While he allowed me to do that, in the meantime, he and his crew, we divided into 5 levels of lodging. And I was always with the stars. We lived in the 4-star hotels. And he, down the line, he would live in the lowest rank with the truck drivers. And when we wanted to have meetings, he can never come because he would be staying like 90 minutes away from our hotel. And I said to him, I said, this is irresponsible. You have to be at meetings. And he said, this is the only way I can lead. So he led like an army man. That is how he squeezed all the money to make sure that every penny showed up in the movie. Okay, so that is why it was 10 million that looked maybe like 24 million. And so if anyone who is interested in going to China to shoot, my one advice would be find a good line producer, as good a line producer as you can get, because that line producer will make you or kill you. Okay. So casting, it was similar to my recruitment of the artists. It wasn't difficult simply because they liked the script. They felt it was a worthwhile project, and they jumped on board because of it. Design, my art designer, my production designer, first idea was, I see a sea of black in front of me. I said, okay, that's great. A sea of black. How I'm going to find all that material to make sure it's not really a sea of black? So we literally had to go, around the world looking for black material, because really nowadays, because of the globalization, because of the commercialization, good material become less and less. Not just in terms of fabric, but all around. You just don't have the kind of a boutique production that we used to have. So then in order to make sure the movie is not just yellow and black, like I said, so I brought in like the color for landscape, but also in terms of interior, I made sure that all the walls had colors. And again, that is against the realistic situation in China. If you have gone to China, you will know that all the walls look like this. It's all beige, beige, beige. But then I made sure, I went to Donghuang and I looked at the caves colors, and I somehow justified to myself that those caves some of them were built by the army men from the same province, and therefore they must have one time had colors on the wall, and therefore I used Donghuang colors for the rooms. So therefore, when I chose the colors, I somehow make sure they correspond with my interpretation of the characters. And therefore, the father, who is a lively man but a stupid man, foolish man, but he's full of vitality. Therefore, his room is green. And then the son, the protagonist, because he's very judgmental, he is actually, even though we agree with his values, he is quite moralistic to dogmatic to the extreme. So I made sure his color is iron gray. So I made differentiations of the rooms. What does it do? It helps the audience to identify the location right away, because it's a very complex story. If you have to explain, I'm in so-and-so's room, then you're wasting time. So just by color coding, you help the audience to understand the story. Next. Like I said, it was done. It started on time. It ended on time. It was finished in 4.5 months, and I have a few examples to show you to talk about the shoot. The camels, we had 2 groups of camels. One group, it was wild camel. Later on, you will see them in the making of. And there's also the trained camel. We had 390 trained camels. They walked 2 nights and a day to reach the shoot and the location, and they shot for 1 day, and they walked 2 nights and a day going back. So that is the kind of hard work people are still willing to do. And then there was also a mountain trail. Later on, you will see that too. The mountain trail, nowadays you look at it, you just say, oh, that's a really pretty shot. A lot of people say to me, you didn't have a lot of CGI work in the movie, right? It's very much just some animal shots, but the rest of them, it was all realism. And I bowed to them. I said, thank you on behalf of my 5 teams of CGI people, computer artists, because for instance, just using that one shot as an example. Later on, you will see the shot. That's why I talk about it. It's modern road now. It's an area that is very dangerous. They don't allow outside cars to drive in there just because it's a very dangerous area. So only local trucks can go in, and it's very high up, and it's all paved with asphalt. So we shipped 200 tons of red earth from down the mountain to pave the road, so to make sure it looks ancient. And then on the side of the road, there are boulders about this tall because they were preventative measures for cars not to fall off. So my line producer and his colleague, the two of them both in their 60s, went over. I asked them later, why didn't you hire someone young to do it? And they said, well, they may actually fall off. So the two of them, they rather risk their own lives. So one of them went out. The other one was holding the other guy's belt. Two of them drew large red crosses on all those boulders, so that after the shoot, we can take that out in the post-production time. They have a marker so that they can trace it and take it out. Once you take it out, because it's a moving shot, then you have to draw in. There are carriages, and there are two carriages going through the cave, and you have to draw all those wheels in, because they were taken out with the boulders already. And it's 1 second, 24 frames. You have to draw all those in order to make it realistic. So it was like about 15 seconds of screen time, and we went through that kind of process in order to achieve it. So, yeah, next. Okay. We used a lot of crane because we felt that it's about a person's place in the universe, and we want to make sure we always remind people of the universe. We don't just close in from only his own perspective. And the wall texture, I made sure it's uneven, and I won't go into details, but it was a lot of work. We have to paint the wall 3 times in order to make sure it's uneven, and also have cold and hot colors so that the wall looks shimmering in the camera's eye. And decor, we were just lucky. We went to the place and we talked to the museums, we talked to the local collectors, and they were willing to lend us the antique. So everything we used on the set, except hand props, were real antique. So you will see a lot of colors that do not exist now, because simply, like I said earlier, the boutique productions no longer exist. So a lot of colors, a lot of material, those were real antique, those were not reproducible. So it was really a moving experience for me to work with them. And then jewelry, same. We bought a lot of antique jewelry, some of, especially the hair jewelry, and some of them we had to regild them because they're already tarnished, but then they were still antique jewelry. Okay. Post-production, it was done in 9 countries, simply because it was not planned. We finished work, and then we look at it and say, we don't like the work. And at that time, someone else would say, oh, I have a friend who lives in a different country, but he's cheap. And then we would just go there. So it was in all these countries, and then the CGI work. Why is the CGI work in all 5 countries? The U.S. was the animal shots was a Hollywood firm that has a Chinese branch. So the artists were little kids, not little kids, were young people from China, but the software was from Hollywood. And then Hong Kong was most specialized in matte painting. So all the landscapes you see in the movie, they were done by the Hong Kong team. So like the rest. So to give you another example, later on you will see a bridge. You already saw the bridge, actually. The bridge is it's very Western. It looks like from Czechoslovakia, or from Czech. It's not Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic. Yeah. So when the movie came out, a lot of directors who are doing commercials called us and they said, where did you find that bridge? And we said, it's in Tianjin. And they said, okay. So they went there to shoot their commercials. And they look at the bridge, the entire, they looked all over and they called and they said, where's that bridge? If you went to Europe, you tell us you went to Europe. There's no reason that you hide that from us. It doesn't really do you any good to cheat us. And we said, it is in Tianjin. And they said, no, it's not. We said, well, you pass through it every day. And they said, okay, so what did you do to it? So what we did, we changed the lamps on the bridge. We changed the sculptures on the grip. We changed the balusters on the bridge. We changed the sand underneath. We changed the water underneath. We changed the sky behind it. We changed the building behind it. We added the little people in the back, walking. The only area that we did not change was, well, we did change too, but was the surface of the bridge. But we had to erase the line, the traffic line, on the bridge. But we did shoot in real location. So that was the kind of work. So it took us 3 years of writing and really had 4.5 months, own time shooting. But then the post-production took us 2 years. It's a lot of labor went into it, a lot of love went into it because we felt it was a worthwhile doing movie. Okay, let me show you the making of.